without error. Now we believe more than just that it's without error. We believe that the Bible's incapable of error, and we'll look at why we believe that as we go on. So we believe in verbal plenary inspiration. Now let's explain these things. Verbal inspiration means every word that God gave was inspired. And plenary means the whole Bible from start to finish is inspired. Not just parts of it, not just the bits that people want to be inspired, but all of it from cover to cover is inspired. For this course we use the Authorised Version, the King James Version for our English Bible. Of course the Bible we use is based on the translation authorised by King James and published in 1611, but it has the King's English revisions included to bring it in line with the Dictionary of King's English. That's why we have the words that we have now. If we take a Bible from 1611 and they are still printing the King James Version from 1611 exactly as it was in 1611, and it is very, very similar to what we have. When we come to it and we look at it and study it, we find that various things have been changed. And we say, why have they been changed? Well, this is the reason. They've been brought in line with the revisions to King's English in the Dictionary of King's English. For this course, we're going to use the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible, which, like the Authorised Version, is based on the Masoretic text of the Old Testament. Get used to that word, the Masoretic text of the Old Testament, and the received text, get used to that word, of the New Testament. Now, just understand that Strong's also print, or not them, but there's also a Strong's Concordance printed that's based on the Greek critical text, which is different, and we need to avoid this edition of the Strong's and use the one that's based on the Masoretic text of the Old Testament and the received text of the New Testament. Now, as the Bible is our only authority, our first priority is to learn something of its basic structure, and we'll immediately do that. Now, you'll know most of this, I trust, but we will then go straight to the justifying of the Bible we use and the underlying text from which it is taken. We'll spend considerable time and effort to establish what we really believe about the Scriptures and their authority, because most people have never really thought through what they really believe about the Scriptures or whether the Scriptures indeed have authority. At this point, we need to ask ourselves the question, are we qualified to even look at this matter of which text we should use? Right? This is a good question. And the experts and the scholars will argue that because we're not proficient in Greek and Hebrew and have no expertise in textual criticism, we should leave this matter to them. Now, how do we answer this? Well, we agree with them that we have no expertise in textual criticism, but that's totally irrelevant to the matter of which text has authority, is authoritative. We're happy to let the scholars who specialise in textual criticism do that job for us. They can do their textual criticism. We know that they can and do make mistakes because we see it all the time, because they've got peers who look at the work that they do, and this is a valuable check on these people who think that they're so clever, because there's other clever people in the world too who look at what they do and they criticise them, right? So textual criticism is a field of its own, and we can look at the work that the textual critics do. We can see it evaluated by other scholars, and we can agree or disagree with the textual critics. Now, that's not really what we're doing. We're looking to say which text is authoritative, not how the textual criticism goes, the criticism of the text. We're not trying to criticise the texts themselves. We're just assessing which text is authoritative. The criteria for doing this is not beyond us. It's not rocket science. We can do it. Anyone who sets their mind to it can look at it and decide which text they believe is authoritative. And these criteria have been used for hundreds of years by anyone who cares to bother, and they're not very difficult to apply. They don't require great scholarship or expertise. As we will see when we come to assess this question, we can be confident of coming to an informed, logical and reasonable decision in this matter. Now, let's just look at the scriptures first and get the background to it. As the scriptures were written, they were written by men under the guidance of God. Remember 2 Peter 1:21 told us this. And they were preserved and copied, but they remained a group of separate writings. Particularly in the New Testament, but the Old Testament too, was a lot of separate writings by different people over hundreds of years, and they had to be all put together. Because they were written over a long period of time, from Moses to John, so 1500 years, say, and consisted of such a variety of writings. There's historical, prophetic, poetic, etc. They needed to be sorted out and put together in some sort of order, or put into a book, and this was called canonised. Now, canonised really just means to be put into a book form. The canon is the book of the scriptures, the canon of the scriptures. And this has been done for us in the past. We didn't have to do it. It's been done for us. And our Bible is the complete revelation of Jesus Christ. It's not to be added to, and it's not to be taken away from, and it's not to be changed. And in Revelation, it particularly warns about adding to, taking away from, or changing it. And God has promised a punishment for anyone who does this. So we need to be very careful ourselves about our attitude to adding to, taking away from, or changing God's word. Who canonised the scriptures for us, and when did they do it? Well, this task of canonisation was done by the church fathers between 300 and 400 AD. This is over 1600 years ago, and there's no real controversy regarding this matter of canonisation. The church fathers didn't just rush in and do it. They looked at it very carefully. They gave themselves unlimited time. It took many years of much debate. They looked at everything that was available. They were very particular in what they did. Everything that they did was publicly done. Everybody who thought they had an opinion was able to comment on it. And in the end, by 400 AD, the scriptures had been canonised. They'd been put together in a book. Now, they didn't have much trouble with the Old Testament because the Jews had already canonised the Old Testament, and they divided it up into really 3 sections. And so they had the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, the law, and then they had the prophets, and then they had the writings. That was the poetic books and those. And so they had canonised the Old Testament and decided which books should be included and which shouldn't. But then the church fathers in 300 to 400 AD looked at it